The top 100 agents are the best of the best, listing and selling more than any other agent in Australia.
Sold. Congratulations, sir. Well bought.
These are the practices, actions and beliefs of the most successful agents in Australian real estate. Raw, honest and completely uncut. Welcome to REB's Secrets of the Top 100 Agents.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Real Estate Business Podcast. I'm Emilie Lauer, REB's Deputy Editor, and today we are celebrating International Women's Day with a special episode highlighting the great women shaping the industry. And today we'll explore how predominantly female-led businesses influence both internal culture and external brands, and whether fostering an environment where women thrive has become a true competitive advantage. To dive deeper, I am joined by UrbanX co-founder Steph Kong, who will share how the company built a leadership team that is 80% female and a broader workforce that is 90% women. Steph, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, look, that's great numbers to start with. 80% female leadership and 90% women workforce. Take us back to the beginning. Was that the plan, or did that happen, kind of organically over time?
It definitely was not the plan. It absolutely just evolved over the years. And, predominantly our business is built on compliance and process. And so having strength in accuracy, communication, and efficiency is key. And so when we were advertising for most of the roles, quite often female candidates would come through. So it's just organically happened with the type and nature of the roles within our business.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because especially for those jobs, attention to details, I guess, is one of the key factor there, which is predominantly a woman's trades. How do you find that having a majority woman team is, shaping your day-to-day culture and day-to-day job?
Yeah. So, ultimately, it does elevate the emotional intelligence across the business and across our leadership team, but we really drive an ownership culture across. And so ultimately what that means is, our team and leaders are super self-aware and they're great at communication. And so, they're really key elements of being able to lead a strong workforce. And it really does come out within our leaders, and it's a big key to our success.
So was culture something really important for you at UrbanX?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think, I still remember day one when Dan and I actually sat down, my co-founder, and we identified our values like very early on in the first few months. And, identifying our values and getting clear of what they are and what behaviors we want to see from our team is imperative. If you're wanting to build a great culture and attract the right people and also retain them. And so our values that we set, they've changed 3 times over the last 6-7 years. And, they were very different at the beginning, but businesses evolve. And so although we set them back in, very close to day one, we've still updated them 3 times and rolled them out to our business because we live in, a lot of companies tend to say, here's our values, if you pop them on the wall, but actually bringing them to life is where the sweet spot is. And, we actually bring them to life in conversations daily and then in everything that we do. And I think that's really been a key to build a solid foundation to help us build the culture that we have today.
So take us through what does that culture look like and how you make sure that the women in your team can thrive in that environment.
Yeah, sure. Well, women or men, ultimately we want to build a culture based, a high-performing culture. And to be able to do that, yes, we've got our values, but being able to put those frameworks in place so that our leaders and our team are clear on what success looks like. And, I touched on it before around having an ownership is at the center of our culture and being able to create that where our team can own their own development, but then also they're working so well together. It's super important. And so with that, we've got clear expectations and guidelines for all our teams so they actually know what success looks like, and then actually putting in key tactics throughout their role, whether it be clear position descriptions, regular catch-ups and feedbacks, regular one-on-ones, and ultimately very good at communicating, because a key to great culture is communicating a lot and doing it well. And we do it a lot. And I think that's really key in regards to making sure that everyone's working well together, because building a great culture isn't hiring the same person either. Building a great culture is building a team, and everybody's got different strengths. And, when you're in that leadership, building out our leadership team, especially over the last 2 years, we've got an amazing leadership team. And I'm very proud to say 90% of them have grown from within.
Nice.
So it's awesome, having their knowledge and skill base. And now they get to, be in that leadership space and help make decisions at the top. And, that's really important in regards to also the next generation of our leaders underneath. They're watching these team members grow to where they are today. And I think that's something, it is really special that we've definitely got. And a lot of companies also, you often say, oh, our company, there's a lot of growth opportunities when you start, like in the interview process. But we actually do grow from within. And I'm always proud to say that, so many of our leaders are now, have started at the very beginning. And that says a lot when you're recruiting and retaining talent.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's quite very interesting that like majority of your team is female. How do you make sure that the couple of guys within your teams are not forgotten?
It's around focusing in on building a performance culture, not just a women culture, if that makes sense. So we really focus in on building performance culture, and ultimately that communication piece is key. So what I mean by that, ultimately, things aren't always going to be smooth, and we've got, challenges. Actually, we have challenges every day, whether it be client challenges or communication challenges or team members within our teams. It's really important to make sure that we put those frameworks in place to be proactive with it. So what I mean by that is giving our leaders some of those tools to be able to have regular one-on-ones and be proactive with their team, because ultimately, if you're proactive with communication and you're having a safe space for team members to bring any issues or any concerns to their leader, and having an open feedback policy both ways, whether it be the leader or the team member, that's the power of building a great culture. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely very interesting. You talked a little bit about the challenges. Let's dive a little bit deeper into these ones. What sort of challenges do you see arising in that team, and are they sometimes related to that female-heavy environment?
Yeah. So I've always ended up working in a full female businesses. Like before UrbanX, I was at Lorna Jane for 16 years, so very long time. And, I started at the bottom and worked my way to the top. And I think that was such a great foundation for me, because retail, women, women love to have a chat sometimes, and sometimes it's not positive. And so from very early on, I was very strong and passionate about creating a positive working environment, and especially any kind of negativity or toxic language, we squash it straight away. Or by having an honest conversation and letting her know, hey, that's not okay here. Quite often there's those values coming in again. That's not following our values. I just need to be honest with you. We want to create a really great culture. But yeah, ultimately, yes, women, you can have a catty culture, but we don't stand for it in our business. And we have honest conversations if it does happen early on, and we'll let them go. Or they realize we're not for them, because we won't listen to it. And you need to protect your culture that way. We spend 80% of our time at work. And so it's really important to create that great culture for everyone to enjoy what they do. And so early on, I learned nip things in the bud straight away. And if they're not right, we're not for everyone, you can leave. And, I think that's really powerful, and it says a lot. And so when we started UrbanX, ended up having accidentally a lot of women on our teams again. And, it's just making sure that they all stick by those values. And ultimately, if there are issues, they've all got strong personalities, but they're all high performers and high standards. And we want that. That's not just women. That's a high performer in general. So just making sure that, when we're going through those moments where people potentially are misunderstood, because high performers all want the same goal. They may get there a little bit differently, and they may, they all have different strengths and opportunities. So I think teaching them and coaching them how to work through those challenges, and, often they just need to change their approach, and they have to understand that the person that they're working with has the same goal. They want the business to do well. They want to support the client. It's just sometimes a misunderstanding.
It's all about communication at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
What are some of the assumptions you've seen, coming from the industry when they come across UrbanX and that's all women's team?
Yes. Look, when I first came across with Dan and we started UrbanX, it was from retail to real estate. And so, yes, people and business is the same in many areas. But ultimately, one thing I did notice when I started recruiting heavily for it is it seems like, there's a lot of bad cultures out there within real estate. And, and I saw that firsthand from interviewing some of the candidates that I was meeting. And some of them that I would interview were like fragile, and you could see how affected they have been from their last workplace, whether that be, yes, in real estate, there's a lot of boys clubs and a lot of ego, or whether that be, working in teams that have a toxic workplace, and it's not healthy. And so straight away, I'm like, hell yes, this is a great opportunity for us to really be the best at culture and lead the way within our industry, because we want to attract the best people. And if that's the way we can do it, absolutely. Because ultimately, there was definitely a gap. So yeah, very proud that is something that we're recognized for, and people do hear about it and want to work for us. And we'll continue to work on that.
Yeah. And I think that's very interesting because, it's an industry that can really burn you out with the ego thing. And as a woman, as a woman, sometimes, it's very hard to have your seats at the table when it's a very male-dominated industry. How do you guys, mentors the women that comes across your team that have had that bad experience, and you need to kind of like get them back, on track and to trust the process again?
Yeah. No, that's a really good point, because you're right. They think that's the norm. Like, that might have been their first job and this is their second job, but they'll almost bring that along. They'll think that's the norm and be okay. And so it really comes back to setting them up right, being honest in the interview process, bringing up your values, also being honest around it's not going to be easy. We're a high-performing culture. We'll have days where we're really happy and winning, and we'll have days that are really challenging and we'll probably cry, but it's all worth it. And so I think being honest at the beginning, because you don't want to, sugarcoat anything. And then from when the day they start, just being very clear with them and honest around how we work. And if they're ever, we actually set up a lot of, we speak about communication a lot. It's a word you can throw around, but we set it up so our team have no choice but to communicate. So, we've got a really strong onboarding plan, and then our leader will meet weekly for the first month. And then we have 3-month probation check-ins, 6-month probation check-ins. And every one of those points is a leader reaching out to their team and making sure, is there anything else that you need, and identifying any other areas they need work with. And that goes both ways, whether it be the team member needing more from their leader or the leader needing more from their team. So having those processes and those key communication touch points at the beginning sets up for a strong relationship. And then overall in our business, we, twice a year, we do a feedback check-in moment. And so our leaders meet and our team members also give feedback to their leader twice a year locked in. And, they take a lot of time, but they're so valuable, having those moments and setting that up. That's just feedback. Then we do one-on-ones, and a lot of the time, busy salespeople don't want to have time for that, but making time to communicate and speak to your team and tell the truth around what success looks like is key in building a really strong, high-performing culture.
Yeah, that's definitely, I think the communication part is something that you guys do really, really well, at least. You come across, to your clients that could be, a lot of real estate, agents male. And again, we are into that kind of ego type of culture. What are some things you'd like to see change within the industry to give women a little bit more space in a way?
That's an interesting question. I think it's really just up to us to be able to, women, it's not about asking to give us a chance. It's about being confident and believing in who you are and what you do. I am there's 2 women on our board and the rest are men from the finance world, and, at the beginning when you are on a board and you're in a board meeting, you often, especially if you're a woman leader and emotional intelligence is your strength, you often think it should be facts and figures and numbers and don't bring the emotion into it. But I think being proud that emotional intelligence is actually a superpower when used well. It's also quite exhausting at times because you're so intuitive. You read the room so much that it can be exhausting, but it absolutely is a superpower. So I think staying true to who you are as a woman and as a leader, don't try to change. Be strong, be confident, and know your strengths, and don't hold back.
Which definitely is sometimes tiring to be very intuitive, which leads me to my next questions. Look, one of the issues in the real estate industry is for women burnout because we take on so much. So you've got your job, the job responsibilities, but also the family responsibilities. I'm not only talking about children, partners, but also parents, brothers, sisters. We kind of like take on the whole world on our shoulders. How do you guys foster a culture to allow women to take up on all fronts without burning themselves?
Yeah. I think it's important to talk about it. I think ultimately, like, we have so many mums, myself included. We started Urban X and I became a mum. So, big changes. But I think ultimately it's making sure that you talk about it, not hide it. A lot of the time women are expected to still perform. They still perform at that level, but it's just different, and I think ultimately putting in clear frameworks, again, in our business, whether it be a leadership role or team member role, getting really clear around what the expectations are of the role, and then setting up those fundamental key things to ensure that they're moving in the right direction. And then more importantly, making sure it's okay to finish at 5. And so I think we don't expect our team to work late at night. Actually, a high-performing team need recovery time. And so it is really important that we help set up those frameworks, and we make it achievable for them to be successful in their roles and be able to finish at 5. Sometimes you have to jump in and do stuff, for emergency, but ultimately we don't expect, and it is really important that they've got time with their family because they're going to be better in life and at work.
What are some of those frameworks that help you guys support women balancing that career progression and that family life?
Yeah. Look, they would be, again, I touched on it. Some of those areas would be getting really clear around what the role is, having clear position description, and then having clear KPIs and metrics around that. First, start with that. Then identify what they actually need to be successful in the role, whether that needs to be extra support or whether they need some different systems and processes or workflow. Ultimately, getting really clear on how they can be successful at work and at home, not forgetting about home. Sometimes I've caught up with some of my team members and, and if they have been overwhelmed, we'd sit down and we'd actually reset their ideal week. And it's such a simple process and practice, but my God, it does wonders. If you can just sit down, break down everything that's important into your life, not just work, adding in your personal life, whether it be kids pick up, whether it be exercise, and resetting what that looks like. And I'll find, even myself, I do that. You should probably do it at least twice a year because your priorities change in business and through life. And so I often do that with a lot of our team members and just kind of resetting, getting really clear around what your areas of focus need to be and making it achievable. And if it's not, then we work on another plan. Do we need to pass some of those responsibilities off onto someone else? Do we need to hire another team member for you? Do we need to introduce a new system to be able to help you spend more time on this? So I think it's just slowing down, getting really clear on what is important in your week and identifying some of those responsibilities if they are overwhelmed that we can either pass or remove or reset into a new structure.
Yeah, and I think it gets to understanding as well your team members better because when you do become a mom or when you start having a bigger family, like things shift around and the mental loads, just creeps up basically.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, and to be honest, like as we've had a lot of mums have babies and come back, and one of our leaders had, when I hired her, 4 weeks in, she felt pregnant, and she actually said to me, it's fine, I'll leave. You don't need to hire me. And I said, absolutely not, and I don't, she's probably scarred from a past workplace, but ultimately, now she's grown within us and she's leading two of our biggest departments in the business. And so, helping and working with our team as they go through their transitions is awesome. It's really powerful, and helping them guide and work through that, they come out even more, they come out even stronger on the other side.
What are some of the other advantages to having a full-on women team?
Some of the advantages, yes, it's a full women's team, but it's also just a high-performing team, whether it be women or men. But ultimately, they love to communicate. And so that's probably why our communicate is quite strong. Probably proactively communicating too much. No, they communicate. I think just if there is an issue, or if we've got any challenges, we jump onto it straight away. We don't leave anything that is incorrect or not right. And I think, a lot of the time I touched on it earlier around, sometimes the approach, if we've got an issue, sometimes if it's raised, in past experiences, people take it personally, or then they won't talk about it, and then there's a bit of an argument. Where if we've got an issue or a challenge, we jump onto it straight away, and we don't stop until we sort it out. And I think that's been really key in us building the business we are today. We don't just sit on something if it's not working. We're actually obsessed with improving, whether it be improving our client service or whether it be improving processes. And it is really important, and it's been a key to our success. On that, we actually just had our we send out a survey to our clients twice a year, NPS. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, Net Promoter Score.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And so we'll send it out, and it's pretty much asking our clients, how are we going? And, we just sent that out towards the end of last year in December, and we do it mid-year. And we just had a leadership retreat 2 weeks ago, and we spent a whole day with our leaders on working out how we can improve our service from the feedback that we got. And so we love feedback, and we get it from our clients. We give it to each other. We receive it. I take it from my team as well. And so we really want to make sure we're always working out how to strive to be better and jumping onto any issues or any feedback. And it's made us who we are today.
Yeah, and I'm guessing also you guys kind of build a sisterhood now.
Yes, we do. We have. Absolutely. We've been through a lot together. I think when you go through challenging, it's not always easy. Absolutely not. I believe when you go through really challenging moments at work, it's actually what makes your team stronger, definitely, because, you see people step up through those challenging situations, and ultimately, I think everyone just starts respecting, the journey that we're all on together.
And do you think that because you are all women, there is a better understanding when conflict arise or when people have personal issues? Yeah, just more understanding and helping each other a bit more?
Yeah, we actually encourage conflict, and it's actually healthy conflict. It's just how we do it. And so everyone's got strong opinions. We're a high-performing team. So women or not, we're a high-performing team, and everyone's got a seat in that table for a reason. And yeah, there's things that are happening that not always our team will like or agree with, but we absolutely take everyone's opinion on board and look at it from a business and client side, and, just making sure that how we deal with that conflict. And it comes back to communication and understanding that we all want the same thing. We're all moving in the same direction. It's just everyone gets there a little bit different way. And often people act differently under pressure. And so your younger or your not so best self comes out in those situations. So I think just understanding that about each other and as a team, is key. And it definitely helps in those situations. But we healthy conflict is important. If no one's talking or arguing, then we're not growing.
I think it's quite interesting to encourage conflict, even if it's a healthy conflict. I think it's quite surprising, as a business and as a team, refreshing, I should say.
Yeah, it is, and it's challenging. We don't just come to work and then we have a leadership meeting or we have a meeting, and we'll ask our team as well, because our team are dealing with clients on the front line, and so it's important that we get their feedback, we get the leaders' feedback, we speak to our clients regularly and get their feedback. It's not always the feedback you want to hear, but my God, it makes us level up and be better. And so we'll jump onto those. And yes, everyone's strong and they've got a different opinion, but ultimately, as long as everyone understands at some point we've got to make a decision, it might not be what you wanted, but ultimately we've assessed all the areas and we make the right decision at that point. It's usually what we need to do, what's best for the client.
You mentioned earlier that women's superpower is to be emotionally intelligent. With 90% of your team being women, what other superpower do we have?
I definitely think the emotional intelligence is the best one because, being self-aware is also a superpower. It can be really exhausting because you're constantly reflecting and being hard on yourself and, always questioning, could I have done that better? How could I have done this? Maybe I should have led or had that better discussion with my team member. But that is a superpower because ultimately you're constantly wanting to be better and improving yourself. You're not waiting for someone to come and tell you how to do it. And so you speed up your development so much more if you practice self-awareness daily. Even in a day, if you're a new leader and you're leading your team, at the end of the day, ask your team, how did I go today? Would you have challenged that differently? Even just asking that one question as a new leader to your team or a fellow leader, it'd be surprising some of the things that you'll find out and the things that you can work on the go, rather than waiting for, feedback from your manager at the key time that's locked in, each year. So emotional intelligence, yes. Communication, again, is obviously a superpower. Being proactive and not hiding from it. I think that's, I know we touched on that a little bit earlier. If there is a misunderstanding or confusion, rather than get frustrated, go communicate to the right person or send it out to the key leaders. I think don't sit on it because it's a waste of energy and a waste of time. Let's jump on the front foot and get it sorted, whether that be a misunderstanding with another leader or whether that be something that someone's unclear of. That communication is imperative.
How is this communication and feedback onboarding as, impacted the business growth?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, if we put all that energy into our team and help support them grow into where they are, they're ultimately going to be better for our clients. And, we hope our clients feel that. They say they do, but we hope they do. Because ultimately, when I touched on our leaders, so many of our team members have grown from within to the leadership level. And it's invaluable, the experience that they've had from starting in admin to moving into marketing to moving into a client manager. That knowledge is invaluable when they are talking with our clients. And so, whether it be internally growth and helping us with that and the knowledge with making decisions because they've had that experience right through the business, it's incredible. And then for our clients' side, they really respect our team. They come from a good place. Their goal is to make our agents' lives easier, and make it easier for them. Because ultimately, the better our team is, the more time back our clients get. And so they're able to be free because they trust what we're doing. They trust that we'll handle that back-end support for them so that they can spend more time building their team and their business and listing and selling.
Well, I know it was an accidental outcome, but if, whether your clients or, another, real estate player wanted to build a culture where women truly thrive, where should they start?
They should start. So I ultimately, we spoke about it a little bit earlier. They should start first on getting clear systems and frameworks in place. We have touched on that a fair bit through the interview. And that is really important because you need to have that locked in. And secondly, I'd be identifying what your values are and what's important to you as a leader in your business. Because if you can't identify what your values are, how are you going to attract the right people, and foster that value-driven culture that you want? And so I would definitely recommend really breaking down those values and working out what they are, because if you do that at the beginning, it'll be your source of truth as you're building teams. When you're going through challenging situations, if you reflect to your values, you should find the answer. And you want to create those values because you're not going to be available as you grow your business. You might be available in that first year, but you're going to be busy and not there. So what happens when you're not there? How do you know that your team are going to do the right thing, make the right decision? Those values are imperative and to be able to continue on that culture. And then obviously on that, train on it. Don't just have the values. How are you going to bring them to life? And so some of the things that we do, we've got a fair bit that we do around bringing those values to life. Like we do a lot of training. We're really proud of our growth and training program. We call it School of Excellence. And we, we do training programs within that for everyone in our business, all the team members. And we also do it for our leadership team, because a lot of them are new to leadership. And so we do 3 training sessions with them a year, and we do 2 with all the team. And we also do a leadership retreat. So we love to train. I think it's important. There's so much to learn. And, each year you've got your new set of challenges or something new that's been introduced into the industry or into our workforce. And it's important that we stay one step ahead of that. We just had our first one of the year last week, and it was probably one of our best School of Excellence workshops. And we really dove into conflict navigation. And like, it doesn't sound exciting, but we deal with conflict every day. And so it was creating a safe space for our team to come in and learn and speak about some of those challenging client conversations that they may have or challenges that they have within a team. And so it was really valuable and it was awesome to see. And a lot of our team had great feedback on it. I think it's really important to be proactive with those things. So ultimately, recommendation, have clear systems and processes to have your team set up, be able to be successful in their role. And then secondly, get really clear of your values for your company and what's important to you and the behaviors you want to see out of your team, and then train it. Don't forget about them. Implement that into your year.
You had a lot of people that went to leadership position within the business already. So they had started with you and, had an internal promotion. What advice would you give to women in real estate who are looking to build up their career and to have leadership roles, but, either don't know where to start or are a little bit worried about the lifestyle demands?
Yeah, definitely. Don't wait, first of all, because you're never going to be ready. And I've had many of these conversations with some of our leaders as well. You can read as many books as you want. Books are important, absolutely. But until you do it and you try it and you practice it, you don't really get to understand and learn about how to be a great leader. And, I've seen so many ladies and so many gents along my time give it a go, and watching their growth once they start is awesome. And so don't wait till you're ready, because you probably never will be. Actually, just give it a go. But when you do, ultimately you need to own your own development. Don't wait to be told how to do it. Be proactive there. Ask for feedback, even ask for feedback from your team members. That's key. It's super important in growing. And, if I think about my journey as well, like, I never had someone teaching me how to do everything that I did. I used to report to the CEO at Lorna Jane when I was 20. And so they don't have time. And so I got very good at being self-aware and learning from my mistakes and then bouncing back, from those. I think it's so important, whatever challenge or whatever you get thrown your way, it's how you act after that that's key. And so I would say, get better at failing, enjoy it, because it's what will make you, and don't wait, give it a go, and just start to be really open to that feedback and own your own development. That's key. That's what I think.
Yeah, that's really, really great advice there. Steph, I know that was an accidental hiring of, having a team full of female just because of the nature of the job. But if you had to do it all over again, would you keep the all-female team, or would you like to see more guys come in?
It was absolutely accidental. And of course we want more guys. It'll ultimately be, we hire for excellence, not gender. And so, yes, it organically happened. But ultimately, it's important that we hire for excellence, because and people that are aligned to our values.
This is all that we have time for today. Steph, thank you so much for joining us.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
This was the REB Podcast show, and we will be back next week with another episode of the REB Pod. In the meantime, join us on our social. Just search for Real Estate Business. Bye for now.